With the 2023 NHL regular season coming to a close, we now know every single matchup in the first round of this year's playoffs. But which teams win, which teams pull off upsets, and who eventually will go on to win the 2023 Stanley Cup. So make sure you watch till the end for the breakdown on every single series and every single series leading up to the Stanley Cup winner, and hit that subscribe button for more hockey content just like this. Everyday videos and streams on the channel during the playoffs, and you don't want to miss it. And here we go, let's get started with the bracket challenge for 2023. Now let's first start off with the Western Conference, and things are looking pretty spicy here. This is a conference that I think honestly multiple upsets could end up happening, and I think honestly this year we will see a lot of upsets. We saw in the last couple of years not as many as usually expected, but I think in the first round we'll see a couple of major ones. Now in saying that, we have the first matchup here between the first spot in the Central and the wild card one with the Avs versus the Kraken, and I think a lot of people might be pointing towards Avalanche like a sweep or 5. I would give the Seattle Kraken just a little bit more credit. They're top in the league in 5-on-5 goals, and their depth scoring has been miraculous this season. But I do think there will be a point where, even though Colorado's been a little bit banged up and Makar is just coming back for the playoffs, and obviously they'll miss Landeskog for the entire playoffs, I still think their strength and their overall quality, especially in the defense and goaltending, will kind of overpower Seattle's, and their goaltending might be a huge difference. Grubauer's been fine this year, but Georgiev has been one of the better ones in the league, and even though I think Seattle will push, especially with their depth scoring, I think the Avs will still win this series in 6, and will just be able to get past Seattle in that way. Next up, we have the Stars versus the Minnesota Wild, the North Stars versus Stars battle pretty much, but in this series, I think it honestly could go either way in a lot of different areas. But I think one of the biggest differences is just the pure offense of both teams. With the Stars, they have a lot more depth, but they also just have a lot more top-end scoring. And for the Wild, they've been one of the most pitiful teams in the entire league at 5-on-5 scoring, which I think in the playoffs will really hold them back. Even if they might have a healthy Kaprizov and a healthy roster, I just don't know if it's quite enough, especially against a decent Stars defense, but an excellent playoff goaltender already in Jake Ottinger. But Philip Gustafsson might also be a difference here. He's been one of the best goalies in the league too when he has played, and that might bring Dallas a little bit closer than maybe a 4 or 5 game series. I'm going to pick Dallas in 6, mostly because just the 5-on-5 offense differences and what Ottinger has shown already, but I do think the Wild will definitely keep it close, and it won't be an easy series at all. Next up, let's go on to the Golden Knights versus the Winnipeg Jets, and this might be the most underratedly interesting series in this first round, and let me explain why. Obviously, the Golden Knights have been way better than the Jets in the regular season, being top seed in the entire Western Conference. But at the same time, there are things that I think the Jets could really thrive in with this series. Obviously, the Winnipeg wideout, the Jets fans are going to be absolutely insane there. But I do think the goaltending is a massive difference. Right now, Logan Thompson, we don't know if he'll be healthy for the first round. They might go Laurent Brossoit or Jonathan Quick. Unless Jonathan Quick gets a massive spark out of nowhere, I don't think that goaltending for the Golden Knights is going to be a strength whatsoever. It'll likely be their biggest weakness, especially if Thompson isn't healthy. And even though there is a massive difference in the 5-on-5 scoring for the Golden Knights and much in favor of them, I do think Connor Hellebuyck is a massive X factor. I think he's going to push this series all the way to 7 games. But the problem becomes for the Jets, they're extremely mid on the road. They're 20-20-1, I believe, around 500. They're not that exceptional. And I think for Vegas, especially in a Game 7 situation, we're going to see them pull through eventually. But I think Connor Hellebuyck is going to make the most of that series and keep the Jets in it. Next up, going on to the Edmonton Oilers versus the LA Kings, and this one makes me a little bit sad because I think for the Kings, this is a horrible matchup for them. Of course, a rematch of the first round of last year, and to me, I think in a lot of ways, Edmonton is just kind of LA's kryptonite here, especially when it comes to the special teams difference. The power play is the best in league history with Edmonton, and LA's penalty kill is only about 75%, so it's going to get eaten alive in a 7-game series. But I think just the major difference is just the style. I think for Edmonton, that overpowered offense is just going to be too much for LA to handle. And unless Jonas Korpisalo pulls off another series like he did with Columbus in 2020, I don't quite see that happening though. And I think Edmonton's just going to overpower LA eventually. But LA is stronger defensively. Korpisalo has been good for them. But I also think for Edmonton, Stuart Skinner has been a major highlight. And the goaltending isn't a weakness for them like it might have been in years past. I'm going to go Edmonton in 6 here, and I do think for LA, there is a chance they pull through, especially with the better defense and maybe better goaltending if, again, Korpisalo were to pull off some magic. But again, I am going to say Edmonton in 6. We got Dallas in 6. We got Vegas in 7 and Colorado in 6. All right, next up, let's go on to the first round matchups in the Eastern Conference. And first up, we got the Bruins versus the Florida Panthers. And as much as I would love to see the Florida Panthers pull off an upset here, it's a situation where I think for Florida, they would have been much more well off playing against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Bruins are winning in 4. I don't see the Bruins. If they were to choke, I don't see it happening in the first round. I'll just say that. Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to make a mistake predicting this next series, aren't I? Let's go on to the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this is one that I just have to go with my gut on this one, okay? And I've just had this feeling, and I've just had this inkling that I think, and it will be stupid saying this, I know it's stupid saying this, but I think this is the year where the Toronto Maple Leafs might win in the first round. I know how crazy it sounds, okay? Just give me a second, all right? After watching a lot of Tampa Bay this year, I gotta tell you, especially after last year's first round, the Lightning did not play well. Vasilevsky did not play well. The Leafs played very well in that series for the most part, just couldn't close it out in the right moments. But this Leafs team has so much more going for it, so much more playoff style players. I think that will also help them getting it done in those crunch time moments. Another big factor for me also is the fact that the Lightning's defense has just been decimated this last year. It's just not as good as it was even last year or 2 years ago. It's just been getting weaker and weaker every single season, and they've been just allowing so many quality chances. Vasilevsky has had to bail them out so many times this season, and I'm not sure if that's quite sustainable. We'll see if that does happen in the first round. Again, Vasilevsky wasn't the greatest last year until crunch time. We'll see if he's a massive difference maker. But for the Leafs as well, Samsonov, if he is healthy, has been great this year, and I think that will be a big part of things. But to me, I give the definite edge to the Leafs defense compared to both teams, and even the forward group has some really big highlights there, especially with adding players like Ryan O'Reilly and players like Noel Acciari who could really come through in those clutch moments in the playoffs. And I think for the Leafs, I'll predict them to win in 6. If they go to 7 games, it's going back to Tampa Bay. We all know Tampa Bay was winning a game 7. But I think, honestly, the Leafs just have a little bit more momentum. They have a little bit more going for them, especially in these last couple of weeks. They've been the much better team. Tampa's kind of slumped a little bit. Obviously, Andre Vasilevsky is the X factor. If he's on his game, then I think Tampa gets the edge. But I also think there's a chance Vasilevsky could be on the top of his game, but still that defense and just the team around him isn't good enough for him to get there. And, I mean, especially with Jeannot being out for likely the series as well, that's a big factor going against the Bolts as well. Now, this next one might make people mad at me, but here goes. The Carolina Hurricanes versus the New York Islanders, and to me, this series has the best chance of any series of having a massive upset. And to me, it all comes down to the goaltending. For the Canes, they're going to be starting Freddie Anderson, and it's like, sure, I guess he's been average this year, and the health has always been questioned. On the other side, though, the Islanders have one of the best goalies in the league, if not the best goalie in the league, who saved the most goals, saved above expected in the entire league this season. And to me, goaltending has always been a major difference in the playoffs. Sorokin, though, if he transitions that regular season success onto the playoffs, I think we'll see them absolutely explode and be a situation where for Carolina, they're already very bad at finishing. They obviously generate a lot of chances, but their bad finishing isn't going to be helped by facing one of the best goalies in the league, and I think Sorokin will have a massive difference. I also think for the Canes, their 5-on-5 scoring is actually worse than the Islanders, and I think for the Islanders, having that 5-on-5 difference is going to be huge, and especially with a lot of their players and even acquisitions like Bo Horvat, I think they're going to be in a really good position playoff-wise to get it done. But that goaltending is the massive difference to me, and I'm going to pick the New York Islanders to win this series in 7. Now going on to the Devils versus the Rangers, and this is a series that I just keep going back and forth on. I could see why the Rangers would win. I could see why the Devils would win. And to me, I do slightly lean New Jersey here, but to me, it's going to a game 7. It's absolutely going all the distance. But to me, there's a few factors why I do pick the New Jersey Devils. Their 5-on-5 play is just so much better, especially in generating chances and being able to control the pace of play. The Devils are just quicker, they're faster, and I think that will definitely aid, especially early on in the season or in the series. I just have a feeling that for the Rangers, there might be a few choke jobs here. I think defense will definitely hold, and Igor Shesterkin will be fine. That's really the main difference, though. For the Devils, even though Vitek Vanacek is not Igor Shesterkin, he's not a slouch either, and he's come up multiple times throughout the season for New Jersey, and if he's healthy, I think the Devils still have some great goaltending on their own side. but their defense has been underrated. It's been consistent. The Devils are 3-1 versus the Rangers in the season series. They've been really great in the season series. And to me, I think for New Jersey, especially when Timo Meier starts to get a little bit hot as well, they're just going to have so much offensive firepower. But that puck possession, especially early on in the playoffs, is so important. And the Devils are dominant in that category. I'm going to push for the Devils, and I'm going to say they win in 7 games. I think they're going to get it done. And even though that lack of experience might not haunt them in round 1, maybe it does later on. Next up, going on to the second round, we got the Avs versus the Stars. I clicked the Avs by accident, so don't look at that. But this series is going to be amazing. Obviously, a rematch of the huge 2020 second round matchup, and that was absolutely brilliant. And I think this is going to be an amazing series as well. We'll maybe see you'll give you a run to play a part. But in all seriousness, I think the goaltending is going to be a huge factor in this series. If Georgiev continues to play well, I mean, the Avs have the edge. But Jake Ottinger, again, I think he's going to prove that he's just an amazing playoff goaltender. And I think against the Avs, especially with Landeskog gone and really not that much added onto that offense on the trade deadline, I think that might be a little bit of a problem. Though I do think Nathan MacKinnon is going to go absolute god mode in these playoffs. He's been amazing when he has played in the regular season. I think that's definitely going to carry over. But I do have questions over if it's enough. And Dallas' offense has improved so much over the last year. I think Dallas has the edge here. I'm going to pick Dallas in game 7 and have them get the win, mostly because of Jake Ottinger and the absolute dominance that I think he'll have. Though I do think for the Avs, they could absolutely steamroll the Stars in this series. The defense will be tested for sure. And I think it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, but game 7 OT, someone's going to come through for the Stars. I just know it. Also, something else to factor, the Stars are one of the best away teams in the entire NHL, and the Avs among top teams are one of the worst at home. So I feel like the Stars could have a pretty big edge there, especially in a game 7 situation. Next up in the second round, we got the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Edmonton Oilers, and this is a series that honestly I'm pretty confident in. I'm going to go for the Edmonton Oilers in 5, mostly because, again, the goaltending difference. I just don't think for Vegas, they're going to have somebody that can actually go up against Connor McDavid and make any saves whatsoever. We saw how Connor McDavid, how dominant he was in the playoffs last year. And I don't think Vegas has much to really stop that. Sure, I think for Vegas, they have a lot of great, solid players there. And they've obviously been a great group. And I think Bruce Cassidy can do a lot there. But at the same time, Edmonton's just dominance, both 5-on-5, the special teams, everything, the goaltending that's been solid. I just don't think Vegas has enough firepower offensively, nor enough from the goaltending side to stop Connor McDavid and his band of merry men. I'm going to pick the Oilers in 5 and put them on to the Western Conference Final. Now let's go back to the Eastern Conference here in the second round matchups. We got the Bruins versus the Leafs and the Islanders versus the Devils. First up, we got Bruins versus the Leafs, and I mean, hey, the Leafs might slay some of their demons. If they get the opportunity to slay the Bruins demons as well, that would be pretty crazy to see. The problem is, I just think for Boston in the second round situation, they're just too good to kind of pass up. And I think for the Leafs, even though they'll get a lot of mojo after that first round win, I just think the Bruins are the better team. Even if the Leafs have that type of mojo, I'm going to pick the Bruins in 6. And I'm going to say for the Leafs, there will still be some more demons to slay in the future, even if they do get past the first round. Then we have the Islanders versus the Devils, and this one I kind of go back and forth on a little bit. To me, I think the Islanders are definitely, or I think the Devils are definitely going to be the favorite in this, but again, going back to Ilya Sorokin and what he could do at this year's playoffs, I think that could be a massive difference maker. The problem is, I just think for the Devils, they're just a much better constructed team, especially on the offense and the top end of that offense. And I think that'll definitely pay in a lot of different ways. I think Nico Hischier is going to have an amazing playoff. Same thing with Timo Meier. And I'm going to predict the Devils to win in 5 games over the Islanders. So we got a Stars, Oilers, Western Conference Finals, and a Bruins, Devils, Eastern Conference Finals. But now let's go on to who will make the Stanley Cup Final and possibly win it in the end. We first got the Stars versus Oilers series, and I've been talking with Jake Ottinger a lot as well, but to me, this might be the series that tests him the most. Just that firepower offense on Edmonton is going to be a lot to deal with. And even though the Stars defense has been decent in points and even quite solid at points throughout the season, I think versus a team like Edmonton, it might honestly crumble a little bit, even if Jake Ottinger might hold his own. I'm going to predict Edmonton to win the series in 6. I think the Stars will definitely hold, but I just don't think there's enough defense there against Edmonton, especially when we're in the Western Conference, to stop McDavid. McDavid at that point is just going to be going lights out, and it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. I could see him getting, honestly, like 14 points in a series like that if it were to go 6 or 7 games. But I'm predicting Oilers in 6, and then going on to the Stanley Cup Final. Next up here, we got the Boston Bruins and the New Jersey Devils. This is one that I would love to see the Devils win, honestly. I would love to see them go on to the Stanley Cup final. The problem is, this is the Bruins we're talking about, and I just think overall the structure, the playoff experience, and just how they're built, I think they're just better built for a series win in an Eastern Conference final. As much as I love how the Devils play and their style of play, I don't know if it's going to be too sustainable yet, especially with the lack of playoff experience with players like Heischer and especially players like Jack Hughes. I think Jack Hughes is going to be great up until this series, but we might kind of see him fade out a little bit. I'm going to pick the Bruins in 6, and it'll set up an Oilers versus Bruins Stanley Cup final. Now, I'm tempted to say that this series will go 7, so I'm just going to go for 7 for the heck of it, because why the heck not? But I do think this is a situation where for both teams, they have pretty big differences in their strengths. Obviously, for the Oilers, the Connor McDavid fact, if he were to go to the Stanley Cup final, he's not letting up at all. He is going to make sure, and with every single morsel of his body, that the Oilers win the Stanley Cup. As for the Bruins, obviously, I do think they have the better depth, the much better defense, and goaltending does also give them the edge. But again, it's just the question of the Connor McDavid effect. How much is that going to be a difference maker? And to me, I think it will be. We've already seen how much McDavid has been lights out in the playoffs. And even though the Western Conference Finals weren't amazing for the Oilers last year, McDavid was still great there, and he was still racking up points. And to me, I think in a series versus Boston, he's going to have maybe the best performance of his entire lifetime. He has that type of gene. He's shown that he has that type of gene. And to me, I'm going to predict the Oilers in 7. I do think it's very bold, I know, but I do think Stuart Skinner is going to be good enough as a rookie to get it done and a great enough story to get it done. I think that defense will hold, and I think Matthias Ekholm is a fantastic addition that will pay dividends, especially in a series like this, and the Oilers will go on to win the Stanley Cup and get rid of the big bad Bruins. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification down below. If you want to join the playoff bracket, we'll have the link down in the description and the pinned comment, so make sure you go down there and enter the bracket, so we'll see how well you guys do in your playoff predictions. And of course, share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all my hockey rankings content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Have a great day, and it's playoff time, baby. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.